Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Medisodes. In today's episode, we're going to be debunking common medical myths. Ranging from cholesterol to vaccines, we're going to cover a lot of the things the general public thinks are true about medicine, but are in fact actually not. And to start us off, we're going to be talking about one that I'm sure all of you have heard before as kids. You need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. But do you? No, you don't. There's actually no scientific proof that healthy people need to drink 8 glasses of water a day, and that drinking extra water actually has any health benefits at all. Scientific research has shown that drinking large amounts of water does not, in fact, make your skin look healthier or wrinkle-free. It doesn't benefit your kidney function, or clean out toxins, and it doesn't make you feel more energetic. So where does this 8 glasses guideline come from? You may have heard of it as the 8x8 rule, which states that you should drink 8 8-ounce glasses of water per day. One theory suggests that it may have originated in 1945, when the US Food and Nutrition Board released a report stating that the average person needs to consume 1 milliliter of water per calorie of food they consume. For someone eating a diet of 2,000 calories per day, which is an average amount for an adult human, this adds up to around 2,000 milliliters, or 64 ounces, or 8 8-ounce glasses of water. Therefore, they recommended that people drink these 8 ounces of glass of water a day. Another probable origin of this 8x8 rule is the work of a nutritionist named Dr. Frederick Stare. He co-authored a book published in 1974 that recommended drinking 6 to 8 glasses of water per day, which could have been based on the previous US FNB report. However, both the book and the original report point out that fruits, vegetables, and other beverages are high in water. Evidently, most people who read them ignored the sentence that appeared, which said, "Most of this quantity is contained in prepared foods." All food does contain water, especially vegetables and fruits, and so these original reports and books probably meant that a lot of the water you'll intake came from them. However, it did not mean that you had to drink 8 glasses of water. So how are you meant to know when to drink enough water? Well, the human body will tell you. When you're thirsty. If you're doing strenuous work in a hot environment, you will need to drink extra fluid to make up for what you lose through perspiration. But use the color of your urine as a guide to how much you drink. Ideally, your urine should be light yellow. If it looks like water and is clear, you're drinking far more than you need to. However, if it's dark yellow or even orange, you need to drink more water. In some special cases, a doctor may tell you to drink large amounts of water, especially if you have certain medical problems, such as kidney stones, to help them pass, a urinary tract infection, to help try and clear the UTI, or if you have diarrhea. There are also some signs of serious dehydration that you should watch out for, because you may need treatment. These include extreme thirst, extreme fussiness or sleepiness in infants, and irritability and confusion in adults, just general disruption of your cognitive thinking. If you have a very dry mouth, skin and mucous membranes, and finally little or no urination, and that any urination that is produced will be darker than normal. Other symptoms in some cases can also include sunken eyes or shriveled and dry skin. However, this is only seen in extremely severe cases of dehydration. So why has this 8 glasses of water myth stuck around for so long? In the end, the answer is capitalism. Companies that make products such as bottled water sponsor and promote research that can be very misleading. For example, a study that concluded that almost 2/3 of children in LA and New York City weren't getting enough water was actually funded by Nestec, a subsidiary of Nestle Waters. But the dehydration definition they used is a value that has been found to be normal in healthy children for many years all over the world. In addition, some weight loss programs tell you to drink 8 glasses of water per day to help you lose weight. And while drinking half a liter of water right before you eat may fill the stomach so you become uncomfortable if you eat too much, there's no evidence that high fluid intake actually leads to weight loss. So remember, next time you need to drink, forget about having to drink 8 glasses of water a day, or almost 2 liters. Instead, just drink when you're thirsty, regularly and often. Now on to Trey, who's going to be talking about another well-known medical myth.
You may have come across the myth that we only use 10% of our brains at any one time, and that the other 90% is just spare capacity. And this would lead logically to the conclusion that if we could somehow unlock the rest of our brain, we could have superhuman powers. And we can see this throughout popular culture, such as in the 2014 film Lucy, stars Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman, and this is a central plot point within it. By unlocking 100% of her brain, Scarlett Johansson's character is able to have telekinesis, accelerated learning, and able to control time. While motivational speakers and quacks may try and push drugs or other remedies that help to unlock this 90%, unfortunately, all they're doing is taking your money. By looking at PET scans and MRI scans, we can see that even simple tasks unlock all regions of the brain. Yet, 2/3 of the population, according to a survey by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, still believe this myth, and over half of science teachers, according to a 2012 survey in the UK and the Netherlands. While it's true that different parts of the brain are activated more or less by different activities, this does not mean that you're not using parts of your brain. In the same way, you don't use every muscle all the time in the same amount, but you still use all of them. So where did this myth arise from? So the most likely cause was from the 1890s, when William James, considered the father of American psychology, wrote in one of his reports that most of us do not meet our mental potential. And this was misinterpreted by self-help books as meaning we only use 10% of our brain, although this is not what William James meant. He meant that we simply don't apply ourselves in a way to maximize our ability. Maximizing our ability is scientifically correct, because if you work harder at something, in theory, you should get better at it. So this myth also arises from the fact that scientists at the time didn't understand the function of certain parts of the brain, such as the large frontal lobes or large areas of the parietal lobe. This led them to believe that they didn't have any function, and they called these parts silent areas. Now we know that the frontal lobes are responsible for many important tasks, such as abstract reasoning, decision making, planning, and making us able to adapt to circumstances that arise and are key to our survival. Another important consideration is how much energy the brain uses. Despite only taking up 2% of our body mass, about 1.5 kilos, the brain requires 20% of our total energy. And this rises to 50% in children and 60% in infants. So the brain is clearly a very power-hungry organ, and it allows us to be the amazing species we are and have these amazing problem-solving skills that humans have. We also know that humans have more neurons than any other species, despite not having a particularly large brain when compared to massive animals like the blue whale. We have 86 million neurons, and that's 40% more than apes, which are our closest relative. One reason we are able to sustain such huge brains is because of cooking that was developed 1.5 million years ago. By cooking food, we made it soft and more easy to digest and absorb by the gut, which allowed us to extract more energy from our food. By having more energy available, we were able to sustain larger brains. Half the calories the brain uses is used to keep the structure intact and make sure that neurons are ready to fire by pumping potassium ions and sodium ions across membranes. And this is to maintain the charge gradient so that when a neuron reaches a synapse, it's able to go across. The brain uses 3.4 times 10 to the 21 ATP molecules per minute, which is just a crazy amount of energy. And there's little energy left for the actual signals to go across the synapses. To maximize energy efficiency, the brain uses sparse coding, which means a small proportion of the brain cells signal at one time, rather than all the brain cells just triggering at the same time. And this maximizes information with the lowest energy possible. It costs a lot to keep your neurons ready to fire, and this means that if 90% of your brain was not being used, it's highly likely that these neurons would be destroyed in order to save energy. The optimum proportion of neurons that can be active at any one time for maximum efficiency is between 1 and 16% of brain cells. But that doesn't mean that we're only using 10% of our brain. That just means at any one moment, we are only using 1 to 16% of neurons. But most of our brain activity is unconscious, such as the medulla oblongata, which regulates stuff such as breathing and heart rate, which we don't even think about. And this allows us to save energy. This energy constraint also means that multitasking is especially difficult for us, because we just do all tasks worse than if we were to do them individually. Our brain doesn't have enough processing power and energy to be able to do all these tasks at once. We've also found that, for example, through neuroplasticity, that the brain saves energy by making sure that neurons are purposed, the most frequent pathways are prioritized. For example, if you unfortunately lost a limb, the brain cells that control that limb will be repurposed to form other functions. So overall, we can see that the 10% myth is completely false, because simply evolution would not allow us to waste so much energy on our brain if we are only getting such a small proportion of processing power out of it. Now, on to Shri, who's going to be talking about cholesterol.
Another common medical myth is the idea that all cholesterol is bad for the body. However, this is a very notorious misconception that needs to be addressed. Cholesterol has a bad reputation thanks to its well-known role in promoting heart disease. For more information on heart disease, check out episode 13 where we discuss heart disease in more detail. Excess cholesterol in the bloodstream is a key contributor to artery clogging plaque, which can accumulate and set the stage for a heart attack. However, the role of cholesterol in your body is not all negative. Cholesterol is a type of lipid. There are two main sources of cholesterol: cholesterol in food that you eat and cholesterol that your liver makes from other nutrients. Cholesterol has many vital roles in the body. It is a vital component in the phospholipid bilayer of the cell membranes of our body cells, as well as other types of cells. Cholesterol changes the fluidity, thickness, compressibility, and water penetration of the lipid bilayers of the cell membrane. Cholesterol is also used to make steroid hormones, which can be grouped into two groups. One group are known as corticosteroids, which are hormones that are produced by the adrenal cortex. The other group of steroid hormones are the sex steroids, which are the hormones produced by the ovaries and the testes. From this, you can see that cholesterol plays a significant role in the endocrine system. Cholesterol is essential for the production of vitamin D because we need cholesterol in our skin cells to make vitamin D from sunlight. Vitamin D helps regulate the amount of calcium and phosphate in our body. These nutrients are needed to keep bones, teeth, and muscles healthy. A lack of vitamin D can lead to bone deformities such as rickets in children and bone pain caused by a condition called osteomalacia in adults. Seeing how cholesterol is important for good health, there is no doubt that cholesterol is essential, but the manner in which it is transported around the body is what differentiates good cholesterol from bad cholesterol. Cholesterol travels through the blood on proteins called lipoproteins. There are two types of lipoproteins that carry cholesterol throughout the body. The first type is low-density lipoproteins, which is known as LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is colloquially referred to as bad cholesterol. High levels of LDL cholesterol increase your risk of heart disease and stroke, as the LDL is causally linked with atherosclerosis, which is the narrowing of arteries caused by LDL depositing on the damaged artery walls. The buildup of LDL cholesterol results in the formation of a plaque, narrowing the blood vessels and reducing blood supply to the cells of the body. If the arteries are completely blocked, no oxygen can reach these cells, meaning that aerobic respiration cannot occur. If this occurs in the coronary arteries, then the myocardium will not be supplied with oxygen, resulting in a heart attack. The other type of lipoprotein is known as HDL, which is high-density lipoproteins, known colloquially as good cholesterol. HDL carries cholesterol back to the liver. The liver then removes it from the body. High levels of HDL cholesterol can lower High levels of HDL cholesterol can lower your risk for heart disease and stroke. So consuming foods that increase your HDL can actually improve your health. Examples of foods that increase HDL include salmon, beans, legumes, nuts, apples, etc. So hopefully this has given you some clarity over the common misconception that all cholesterol is bad for your body. Instead, it is important to understand that variations in how the cholesterol is transported around the body determine whether the cholesterol is good or bad. Analyzing how different foods increase or decrease the level of HDL and LDL cholesterol is important to help self-tailor your diet so that you can reduce your risk of developing heart disease. Now on to Adrian, who will be talking about another medical myth.
One of the most dangerous, widespread, topical medical myths today is about vaccinations and autism. This myth claims that vaccines cause autism, particularly in children. It would be an understatement to call it a myth. It's more of a public controversy, one that's damaging and destructive to public health. Sometimes there are two sides to an issue, and sometimes there's only one side. The safety of vaccines is an argument that has only one side. Vaccines are safe. Full stop. There's no evidence to suggest otherwise, and anything that suggests the opposite is false, not backed by evidence, and unfounded. Vaccines do not cause autism, and nor is there any evidence to indicate that there are any significant, harmful side effects to vaccinations. All we know is that they save lives, and as such any resistance is harmful to the health of the general public. But where did this rumour come from? In 1998, a British doctor named Andrew Wakefield claimed he found a link between autism and the MMR vaccine. MMR stands for measles, mumps and rubella, and this combined vaccine is usually first given to children aged between 12 and 15 months. The study Dr. Wakefield conducted consisted of only 12 people, which is far too small for any study. Generally, reliable studies consist of thousands of participants, and such a large sample size is necessary to ensure that it is representative of the population, and that there is limited bias in the results. Using only 12 people means that the sample is not representative, and any such trends from this tiny dataset are not valid. To make matters worse, investigators later discovered that Dr. Wakefield had intentionally meddled with this data. The paper was subsequently retracted and his medical license terminated. He had faked his results in order to gain public attention. However, once the idea was out in the public, it stuck around, and even today there are people who remain against vaccinations. And in this day and age where the globe is fighting a pandemic, vaccines are our way out safely. One reason the myth is so persistent is that autism cases are on the rise, and there is no clear cause. Scientists do not know the cause of autism. Parents are right to be concerned about this, but it is wrong to assume that vaccines should be culpable for this. One can consider vaccines a victim of their own success. They work so effectively that people have forgotten just how destructive diseases like polio, measles, and whooping cough used to be. Cases of these and other diseases used to be so much more widespread, but thanks to vaccines they are rarer and rarer, so much so that people just don't understand how much they are gaining from being vaccinated, or vaccinating their children. Of course, many people believe in the right to choose, and it's a fundamental medical ethic, autonomy. People should, and do, have the right to choose whether they are vaccinated. But the problem is that other people are affected by an unvaccinated person. It's because of this effect on other people that diseases like measles, that was once considered eliminated in the USA and the UK, is now back and spreading throughout the world. However, this association between vaccines and autism can be considered the root of several conspiracy theories that exist about vaccination today. Vaccination has faced an unusual amount of resistance compared to other medicines because it is more invasive and is used as a preventative measure rather than a treatment measure. Since vaccines are given before people see the devastating effects of a disease, people find it harder to see their value. And since they're given as an injection into the bloodstream directly and not as an oral tablet or capsule, they are seen as more invasive and thus face more skepticism. Several of the so-called arguments that are used against vaccination can also be applied to more traditional oral medications, but they are not because of the invasive nature. Several of the so-called arguments that are used against vaccination can also be applied to more traditional oral medications, but they are not because of the invasive nature of vaccination. How dangerous are anti-vaccine myths? Especially in the case of the COVID-19 vaccines, anti-vaccine misinformation is extremely destructive. They give false information to people who may not be as well informed, and may influence them to not get vaccinated either. The problem is multiplied when the source of information that is false comes from someone who has a high social standing. For example, the President or the Prime Minister of the country. People are more likely to trust in such a figure since they are in a position of authority, and this means that they are more likely to be influenced by what they say. As with all vaccinations, it's important that a large enough proportion of the population is vaccinated, giving rise to a situation called herd immunity. This is where enough of the population is vaccinated such that a single person with the disease is unlikely to encounter another unvaccinated person to pass the disease on, hence reducing the spread of the disease. Therefore, any resistance to vaccination is harmful to a person's own and the surrounding people's health, for it slows down the rate at which we can reach herd immunity, and in the case of the COVID-19 vaccines, it may mean we never reach it. There's no exact way we can get rid of such information, apart from challenging it. The fact is that there is no evidence whatsoever that vaccines cause autism, or indeed have any other significant health risks that mean they should be avoided. A case in which vaccines should be avoided, however, is where your health genuinely does not allow you to take the vaccine, such as an allergy. In those cases, it's acceptable to not take the vaccine because the impacts of the vaccine would be significantly worse for you than the impacts of taking the vaccine and being protected from the disease. However, in most cases, there is no justification for not taking the vaccine that is scientifically backed. Of course, there may be religious beliefs, but several religions do not prevent vaccinations explicitly. All in all, we need to fight this misinformation so that in the best interest of public health. It's not going to go away on its own and it's not going to go anytime soon, but what people can do is make sure that they get their information from reliable sources, such as the NHS website, and not from people on social media who may not be qualified or know what they're talking about. I'll now hand back to Anupam.
So hopefully over the course of this episode, you've become better educated about some of the common medical myths that pervade our society. And maybe you've learned something new that you can share with your family and friends about these things that a lot of people think are true. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and share the video. As always, we upload every week, so be sure to be here next week. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.